Welcome to the latest live stream, then, courtesy of Seahawks Draft Blog. Rob Staton and Robbie Williams with you tonight. Robbie's got a new username, as you can probably see there, which indicates that we are going to be talking about free agency. I wonder which player that he's hoping to see comes back to Seattle over the next few days. Robbie, so the legal tampering period starts tomorrow. I think it's at midday Eastern time that begins, and that is generally when signings will be made. Yeah, nothing's official until the new league year begins, but we'll find out tomorrow where the top free agents are going to be going. It's often a very quiet day when it comes to the Seahawks, but I think a lot of people are hoping that this will be a more proactive free agency. Certainly that's something that I feel like the Seahawks definitely need, something that I wrote about a little bit earlier on today. They've not drafted well enough over the years, which means that this adding fringe players and backups from other teams and filling out your depth, all it's really led to is the Seahawks not being good enough to compete for a Super Bowl. And with only one pick in the first 130 picks in the draft this year, their only real chance, as things stand today, this is before any Russell Wilson trade or any other trade that could potentially happen. They have 4 picks and 1 in the top 130. If the Seahawks are seriously aiming to compete for the NFC and get to the Super Bowl in 2021, then free agency at the moment is their best opportunity to improve. And boy, do they need to improve. And also they have a whole host of holes to fill. So as we stand here with less than 24 hours to go, how are you feeling going into this year's free agency period?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. Like, I feel like they need to make a bunch of decisions and come out and be hard players right out the gate. But I was just literally reading 2 seconds ago that that John Snyder and Pete Carroll haven't spent more than $7.8 million on a free agent per year. And that just tells me that they're probably not going to do anything. I mean, with the limited amount of money that they actually have, my guess is they're probably going to go out. They're going to get fringe players, people who, fill out the roster, because we have a lot of holes. So they have a lot of positions that they need to fill. They obviously can't go out and spend a bunch of money on everyone without creating some cap room. And maybe they will do that before that comes around. But it's even hard to look at free agency right now with so much going on with Russ. But, when you're looking at it, obviously right away, and you can see in my thing, bring Sherm home. That's my number one priority. I want to bring Sherm home. And, obviously we need to, get after the offensive line, and, D end is now a need again. And as it is every year, it feels like. So I feel like it's just kind of one of those things, man, where it's like, we're going to all be like on pins and needles, hoping something happens, and kind of be like the same thing it is every year, where we're not going to really get, what we want.
Well, I think the priorities, Robbie, are definitely in the trenches for me. And, I've talked about this for a long time now. I was kind of hoping that they were going to find a way to shift some resource from linebacker and safety and plow it into the defensive line and the offensive line. And I still hold out hope that they'll be able to do that. They've got about $16.5 million of cap space going into this, but they have a whole host of needs, whether it's left guard, center, pass rusher now that Carlos Dunlap and Benson Mayowa have both gone, cornerback, Sam, tight end. The list is so long, you get halfway through the list and you wonder which position you've already said. I mean, that's how difficult it is to run through Seattle's needs. So that $16 million is not going to last very long at all. And it's kind of, you weigh that off with, well, how are they going to fill all these needs unless they're going to sign about 8 players at $2 million, which, we kind of joke about that, but that is kind of the thing that the Seahawks have become known for, is doing that. I hope that that's not the path they're going to go down. And I'd like to see some quality. I mean, like, we always hear these kind of things that the Seahawks don't do this and they don't do that in free agency. Well, maybe they should do that. Just because a team has gone a certain path for year after year after year, Robbie, they've not spent more than $8 million a year on an outside free agent, doesn't mean that it's too late to start. One of Pete Carroll's sayings is it's never too late to reinvent yourself. They need an injection of quality. There's a reason why Russell Wilson is voicing out. It's not just because I think he disagrees with Pete Carroll's vision for the team and the offense. I don't think it's just because of the offensive line. I think he wants to see this team do a better job building this roster. I don't think he looks at the Seahawks roster and thinks it's particularly close to winning a Super Bowl. And I think they need to go out there and get some work done in the next few days and be competitive for a Corey Linsley or a Joe Tooney. And listen, everybody's on Twitter. I'm not daft. Everyone's on Twitter. All the reporters, Robbie, are saying they're not going to sign either of these two. They're probably right. Doesn't mean that they shouldn't be out there trying to compete for them, making a splash. You have to play Aaron Donald at least twice a year. You had to play him 3 times in the 2020 season. You need an answer to that. You just can't keep playing the Rams and allowing him to win the game, in the case of the playoff contest, playing only 50% of the snaps. There needs to be some improvement there. And do you know what? That number 56 pick's probably going to go on a guard or a center. But then it's up to you to go and add some real talent to the position you're not going to fill in the draft. So that is first and foremost what I would like to see them do, is go and make a big addition on the offensive line. And if it's not Lindsley, and if it's not Tooney, it should be one of the, it should be a Zeitler, it should be an Andrews, it should be a Nick Martin, it should be an Alex Mack. There needs to be some kind of an addition there. And then on the defensive line, Robbie, they've got to get some pass rush. I wrote about this earlier today. This is an issue that has gone on far too long. Whether it was, in 2018, it was they've got Frank Clark. That's a nice building block. How do they improve the pass rush? They then remove Frank Clark. And since then, it's just been a game of musical chairs on the defensive line. Whether it's Clowney, whether it's Dunlap, Taylor's not played. Rasheem Green and LJ Collier just don't look good enough. They've got to get a couple of guys in. Now, if they end up trading Russell Wilson and end up in the first round, Robbie, I spent this morning watching all of the pass rushers again. And there are players with profiles in the first 2 rounds who could easily appeal to the Seahawks. And if they end up with a first round pick in whatever way, I think there's at least a decent chance, and we should have a conversation about that if it happens, about them potentially adding a pass rusher in the draft. But they should still go and get something done this week, whether that's Dunlap coming back or somebody else. There are just too many pass rushers out there for the Seahawks not to address this.
Yeah, 100%. I'm still bummed about the Dunlap situation, man. I really wanted to see him come back and play. So, I'd like to see us go out and make an effort to bring him back. And I saw some. Why would anybody want an offensive line to come here? And that's 100% right, DC. Why wouldn't an offensive lineman want to come here? Russ just threw this whole offensive line under the bus. Really makes it frustrating, going into free agency when one of our biggest needs is left guard and center. And, we're going to need to find a replacement for Dwayne Brown eventually as well. So why would anybody want to come play here? And it's frustrating. And, the draft does have a lot of good offensive linemen and such, but, not being in that first, round and not picking until 56. Really, I'm hoping that we do trade Jamal Adams and get back into this draft, because we need to. We absolutely have to get into it, and we got to, we have too many needs to paying the safety that much money right now, and he can help fill a couple holes. So if we trade him, I bet we can fill 2-3 holes with that.
Yeah, obviously, Robbie, it is something we've talked about an awful lot on the podcast throughout the season, and I still believe that is the right thing to do. I just don't think that 18 to 20 million on Jamal Adams is the right way to go. That said, as time has gone by, look, I was never predicting that the Seahawks were going to do that. I was never saying they're going to trade Jamal Adams. I was always saying it's my opinion. And as we sit here today on the 14th of March, Robbie, I don't think they're going to trade Jamal Adams. I think I was actually watching a lot of the All-22 tape this week. It's something I never do. I'm not even going to pretend that the last thing I want to do, Robbie, after watching the Seahawks play, is watch it again in the All-22. More often than not, I don't want to watch it again at all. I don't even want to watch the highlights in most recent games. And people will laugh about that after a 12-4 win season. The days are long gone since I used to watch every game back and be excited to relive it, Robbie, because even the wins last year were not. How could you watch the Washington game back thinking, oh, this is the moment where they nearly blow a 17-point lead? You can't watch that and enjoy it. You turn it off after 3 quarters and go, well, that's enough of that. So I watched the All-22. I was watching how it's very clear that they have shifted their defense almost completely for Jamal Adams, and why they are willing to switch to this bare front with 3 defensive linemen, essentially Jamal Adams playing as an extra pass rusher at the front, with your 2 defensive ends in there, rushing with 6, having your linebackers blitz all the time. They've completely changed the defense, Robbie, for Jamal Adams. And yet they won't change the offense for the quarterback that they're paying $35 million a year. They won't even let him have his say in the input in the meetings, apparently, according to the Athletic interview. And they won't let him play with the tempo and the aggression that they want to play on offense. But they'll change everything for Jamal Adams. And I think that is here to stay. I think that's the way they're going to go. In fact, I've actually been looking at players who maybe fit more into that sort of bare front look than the traditional sort of how they're going to rush with 4, how they're going to play, more orthodox 4-3. That's kind of the way. I think that Adams has essentially changed everything now. And presumably they're going to pay him at some point this year, unless, of course, they trade Russell Wilson and Jamal Adams does what Jamal Adams does, which is have his say on the situation. So we'll find out about that. So I don't think he's going to go anywhere. I still feel like something has to give, Robbie. Just cutting Carlos Dunlap and having $16 million to replace 6 or 7 starting positions isn't enough. It's not going to be enough even if they have no intention of signing any big free agents. They're still going to have more money. So whether there's a restructure coming in the next 24 hours or even during free agency, whether there's an extension coming, whether there's a big trade coming, we all know what is the main headline in that regard at the moment, and we will talk about that briefly. But something still has to give. That has been the case all the way through. When I spoke to Corbin Smith, I said it has to be more than just one of Jaron Reed or Carlos Dunlap. It has to be something on top of that if that's the way you're going to go. And so it has proved. Dunlap's cutting is not enough to fill all of the holes on this team. They are going to have to do something else. I can't predict what it's going to be, Robbie. I don't think a Tyler Lockett extension creates enough money. I don't think a Jaron Reed extension creates enough money. So your guess is as good as mine, really. Everything points towards one thing at the moment for me, but I think we should talk about that a little bit later on. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they can still restructure. There's plenty of things they can still do. And you're right. Like, signing Tyler Lockett extension is not going to be enough. And it's frustrating when I'm sitting here reading, NBC Sports and how the Rams are working hard to retain Leonard Floyd. And they're still like $39 million under the cap. Like, how is that possible? How are they going to
over the cap? They're 39 million. They're 30 odd million over the cap.
Over the cap. So how are they in a position to even try to retain anybody? Rob, it brings up the question, like, how much does the cap really matter right now? Like, do people really care? I don't know what the penalty is if you stay over the cap. No idea. So to see the Rams being able to do that and still try to, keep one of their key players is one of the players I was kind of hoping we maybe target and go after, on the defensive line as well. So I don't know. It's frustrating to watch, and you're right there, but there are plenty of things that we can do to get more money. And I was reading that, we could restructure Russell Wilson's deal without his consent. We don't have to have him sign it off on it. It's just one of the things that we're able to do to, move some money around. So it'll be interesting, man. I'm not really sure, that your guess is as good as mine when it comes to what's going to happen this offseason. I mean, I know what I want to have happen, but I know what, I have the realistic side of me and then the hopeful side of me. And just usually the realistic side is what plays out.
Yeah, if the Seahawks turn around to Russell Wilson and go, "Hi, Russell, yeah, we know that you're really unhappy, but here's the thing: we've just restructured your contract, and now it's impossible to trade you. So see you in July." I think if they do that, then all hell is going to break loose. So I doubt that is their plan. I know that there was a Twitter account called NFL Rumors that suggested that was happening, and I don't know what was more surprising, Robbie, was that they'd actually gone to the bother of creating a fake NFL Rumors website, or that people are actually believing the fake NFL Rumors Twitter accounts. I mean, the Twitter timeline is called NFL Rums. They can't even spell rumors. So, but that was still actually getting traction on a few sites that I was looking at earlier today. So crazy stuff.
Reminds me of the guy who got on the radio like last year or the year before.
Oh, everyone loves nudes.
Yeah, everyone loves nudes. That guy.
I think that's what it was. It was something to do with nudes.
Yeah.
That was a crazy day. That was a great day, though. That sort of got everybody, occupied everybody's mind and took it away from the pass rush being rubbish for a whole day during the summer, during the whole lockdown thing. So 3 cheers for everyone loves nudes. Jason has got in touch here, Robbie, and I just wanted to read this out. I don't think we're up against the cap at all. JS has 3 players signed past 2022 and the new TV deal coming. We could backload contracts and get many things done now. Well, theoretically, yes. But here's the thing, Jason. With only $16 million at the moment, how much are you backloading a contract? So let's say that Corey Linsley, you want to sign Corey Linsley at $12 million a year. If you gave him a $3 million cap hit this year, then his cap hit the following year is probably going to be $21 million. So it's, you can structure these deals with low first year cap hits, but the structure of the contract has to be realistic down the line. You can't go crazy and say in like 3 years' time, you're going to have a center on like a quarterback's contract or an elite pass rusher's contract. So they don't really have the money to do what you're suggesting there because they've got to sign so many players. If they had, let's just say, imagine a scenario where they had a full draft class, a full complement of picks, 7 picks, $16 million to spend, Robbie, and they had maybe a couple of needs. And they were saying, right, we can fill one of these needs in the first round and we can fill one of these needs in free agency. In that situation, you could probably give Corey Linsley $6-7 million this year and backload the contract. That would work. When you have got about 6, 7, 8 starting positions that need replacing or retaining the players that are going to be out of contract in a couple of days, you don't have the room to backload to the extent that maybe Jason was suggesting there. And you're right, the cap doesn't really seem to mean anything. If the Rams can sign Leonard Floyd on top of Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp and Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, and they can get rid of Goff's contract and they can get rid of Todd Gurley's contract and they can bring in Matt Stafford's contract, who knows? Maybe the NFL will throw the book at them. We don't really know what's going to happen to any of these teams that are still in cap trouble down the line. They might do 10 restructures today and they might suddenly be in the black again. But right now, they're deep, deep, deep in the red. I just don't get the impression, Robbie, that the Seahawks are suddenly going to find themselves $20 million over the cap in the next few days in order to go on a bit of a splurge. I hope that that's the case. I think there are too many assumptions within the Seattle media that they're just going to do what they've done every year. Because if you just keep doing the same thing year after year after year with the same results year after year after year, well, what did Einstein say about doing that? And the Seahawks cannot keep just finishing seasons the way they are, Robbie. They're already on the brink of driving their franchise quarterback out of the city of Seattle because they just can't take the next step. Eventually, you have to sort of say, okay, if we're going to trade 2 first-round picks, a third and Bradley McDougall for Jamal Adams, that is a statement of where we are as a franchise, which is we're going for this. And if you're going to go for it for a blitzing safety, you better go for it a bit more when it comes to free agency. And you have ready-made solutions to fix some of your biggest problems, O-line and pass rush.
Well, they put themselves in that situation to go for it because they made such poor decisions prior to that. They're the free agent. We made that decision right before the season started. We brought him in because he was what was available left, and we put ourselves in a position by drafting poorly and spending our money poorly. So now we're in a position where we need to get back in this draft. We have a player that we traded 2 first rounds, a third, and a player for. This is why we need to make that trade. I agree. I don't think we're going to trade Jamal Adams at this point. I think more likely than not, we're going to end up, re-signing him to a long-term deal, and he'll have a $9 million cap hit. I think it'll be an extension with a $9 million cap hit this year, and then next year when it'll start, really kicking in and being really expensive. And it's unfortunate because that's just not the place you want to be when we have so many holes. So, you're absolutely right.
Okay, there's a couple of messages here I have to address, Robbie. So Brent here says, I like Rob Staton's idea of trading Russ and getting all that cap space and draft picks for next year. I have never, ever suggested an idea that includes trading Russell Wilson. I have discussed what would happen if Russell Wilson is traded, but I've never pitched an idea and saying, hey guys, right, okay, I've got a great plan, right? It involves trading one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. That's never something that I've discussed, Robbie, and Robbie will vouch for that and back me up on that. That is not an idea that has crossed my mind at all. But he goes on to say, for next year to start the defense, get a top line running back and O-line, then fit the new QB into it. I'm going to talk about all that stuff. I want to talk about the quarterback situation later on, Robbie. I want to stick to free agency first of all, just to give everybody a break from Russell Wilson mania. DC here, I wanted to address this as well. None of them alone are enough, but Reed, Lockett, Dwayne together get some wiggle room. Yeah, the thing is, I don't want to start messing with Dwayne Brown's contract, Robbie, because if Dwayne Brown's year to year, if you start pushing money down the line for Dwayne Brown, a player who's in his late 30s, you're just encouraging dead cap money down the line. You know, as far as I'm concerned, just leave Dwayne. Dwayne Brown's already said on Twitter that he's playing this year. Let's just let him play out his contracts and see if he wants to carry on next year. I don't want to touch that deal. And it's not that expensive anyway. Lockett, okay, what are you going to do with Lockett? So Lockett's on about $10 or $11 million a year. He's at the very least, he's going to expect the same as Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, which is sort of 15, 16 million a year. So I don't understand how you can give him a $5 million a year average raise and significantly lower his cap hit this year unless you're willing to pay him an obscene cap hit down the line. There may well be a way of doing that, Robbie, but I've not got that answer right now. A greater man may have the answer to that question. And if you have, then post it in the comments section. But the way I look at it, if you give somebody a massive whopping pay rise, like a 50% pay increase, it's quite hard to lower their cap hit this year. And then with Jarran Reed, you could extend Jarran Reed and you could lower his cap hit. That is viable. But we've seen how the Seahawks are treating defensive tackles in the last year. I mean, they went into last season without even adding one. So I'm not convinced they're going to sort of make a big splash on Jarran Reed there. What is he, age 29 now, in order to get through there. We've got a question here from Eduardo Bueno saying, any chance we get the Green Bay center Corey Linsley? I mean, he would be top of my list, Robbie, to go after. I just don't see how. Let's imagine this scenario. You're Corey Linsley. You're Corey. We're going to do some role play. You be Corey Linsley. I'll be the Seahawks, Robbie. Okay. So ring, ring, ring. Answer the phone. Come on, Robbie. You're an Oscars at stake here. Pretend to answer the phone.
I'm not. You're ringing. Yes, you're calling. I'm not picking up the phone.
Oh, do you know what? I actually pulled a muscle laughing at that. So it hurts. So let's go through it. Okay, it's the Seahawks here, Corey. We'd like you to come to Seattle. What's your response to that? Let's play along with it.
What's the status with Russell Wilson?
Well, we might trade him.
I'm out.
There you go.
It's simple. He's not gonna. I mean, or either that or he's like, "What are you paying me? You better pay me a lot." And a lot of guarantees to come play for Seattle right now.
Yeah, I mean, Coltrane says Russ won't be traded this year 100%. There will be too much dead cap hit. I can't, please. No, let's ban the words dead cap hit from life. I'll just say it very quickly. The dead cap hit means nothing. If they trade Russell Wilson, they gain nearly $40 million of cap space next year. They can borrow up to 58 million they have in non-guaranteed salary that they can move around to create 20, 30, $40 million worth of cap space this year if they want to. If they trade Wilson, there'll be $7 million under the cap anyway. So they could have $40 million to spend quite easily and then another 130, 140 million next year. So the dead cap hit has never been an issue. Lazy people have not done their homework and have gone on and on and on about that. John Clayton is a good example. John should know better, really, because it's not that hard to sort of to work out how the cap implications next year can affect this year as well. And it has actually been reported since, Robbie, that the Seahawks, Colin Cowherd said it on Friday, I think it was, that the Seahawks are not bothered about the dead cap hit. And I think Diana Rossini said it as well. The Seahawks are not really bothered about the dead. The cap hit's not an issue. The issue is, who do you move on to once Wilson has gone? It's the replacement quarterback. Again, we will come back to that.
Yeah, we should probably talk about a couple of things real fast before we move on. Someone just posted that Aaron Jones just got 4 years, 48 mil. Just saw that come through. And then ESPN's Jeremy Fowler and Dan Graziano, not to say his name, that the Seahawks are evaluating internal offensive line options in free agency and will pursue someone if the price is right. And that the Seahawks are also looking at Giants guard Kevin.
Oh yeah, I saw that earlier.
Yeah,
Zeidler, so there's a few thoughts to this. First of all, what do you think about Aaron Jones? So he's going back to Green Bay. So they chose not to franchise Aaron Jones, but he gets a 4-year, $48 million contract, which that's kind of strange because the franchise tag was 8 million, so he's got more than 8 million a year. So I don't really know why they've given him a massive contract rather than franchising him for 1 year and playing it by ear, Robbie. But he comes off that could have implications for Chris Carson, who's obviously in this market too, and that is a significant deal there for the Packers, and that is a player who, look, I wasn't saying I would not want the Seahawks to give him that. If he was on 8 million for 2 years, I'd have been all over Aaron Jones. So, any thoughts on that? I mean, you got any thoughts on Aaron Jones being off the market?
Not really. I mean, I didn't think we were going to target him anyways. I think we'll probably draft a running back, or bring back someone like Carlos Hyde on the cheap. I don't think we're going to spend big on running back this year anyway. So I'll be
interested to see what they do at running back. I mean, I think what they do at running back will be interesting because they don't have a lot of draft picks still. And even if they trade Russell Wilson, Robbie, they'll be back in the first round. I don't think they would take a first round running back. They have 2 picks in round 2. Possible, I guess. They may have a third if the Bears give them a third. But then, how much are you getting in day 3? And for me, once Travis, see, people call him ETN, but I've always thought Saint Etienne in France is not pronounced Etienne. And there's a in Holland, the name is pronounced Etienne. So I would like somebody to ask Travis Etienne exactly how you pronounce his second name. Anyway, that's just me. My mother was a language teacher. So once he's gone, Najee Harris is gone. Javonte Williams is gone. He's the favorite. There's not really anybody I would say, well, there's a guy who can lead the Seahawks backfield. So I'm interested to see, maybe Chris Carson will end up coming back. I mean, who knows? I felt like the bridges were burned there, Robbie, but who knows? As for Kevin Zeitler, so the connection with Zeitler seems to be that he played with Russell Wilson. But the thing is that if Russell Wilson is angling for a move, one, I don't think signing Kevin Zeitler is going to make him change his mind. And 2, I don't know. He's been a right guard at Wisconsin and the Giants and Cleveland and Cincinnati. I mean, right guard all the way. I have never played offensive line, Robbie. I don't know if you have. I'm guessing no.
Like 5 foot nothing, dude. I don't.
Good leverage. So I don't know how easy it is to switch from right guard to left guard. I'll be honest. I assumed when I was talking about Brandon Scherf that it would be fine because it's not like you're really, you're kind of in between 2 guys, aren't you? So it's not really that big a deal. But I don't know if it is or not, and if there's a reason why he's played right guard throughout his entire career. But Zeitler, the Bengals fans are really keen on getting him back, and they're desperate, Robbie, and they have some cap space to use. So I'm not sure that he will be the guy. Have you seen much of him? Do you sort of have an opinion on whether he would be an option that you would consider?
No, I haven't really looked at him very much. I mean, I just kind of mostly look at, what other people say about him to kind of get a gauge of what people are, feeling like it. But I mean, like Ethan just said here, if Damian can move to center, I think Damian could probably move to left guard too.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see that. I mean, he seems like the kind of player that could, and he's good enough. And we if we can convert a defensive lineman into an offensive lineman, I don't see why any reason why that Damian Lewis couldn't transfer over to left guard.
What about, so I mean, with the other offensive linemen, I think I mentioned a few names earlier. If you can't get Lindsley, and look, I wouldn't predict Lindsley at all. I think Alex Mack is a I think for a year a decent compromise. He never misses a game. He missed a game at the end of last year, and that was like 90 straight games that he played in a row, Robbie, that he hadn't missed. There are others. Nick Martin. I really like Nick Martin coming out when he was in the draft, and he's kind of always been solid, but not spectacular. He had a really good pass blocking grade the last 3 years. So, you could do a lot worse than him. I think he's better than Ethan Posick. I saw somebody in the comment section saying moving Ethan Posick to left guard. I am done with moving. Ethan Posick has had his chance as far as I'm concerned. He did not finish the season very well at all. You need to get an upgrade there, whether it's at guard or at center. Some of the other names, there are options there. I mean, we've kind of gone through the centre ones, and I think a veteran centre, Robbie, is perhaps more likely than a veteran guard, just because I think the draft is so rich at guard that I think that's the direction they will go for that position. What about elsewhere? I mean, if you've got any other names, I think a third weapon, whether that's a good receiver or a good tight end, is really necessary. And as much as people are fixated on, oh, Russell Wilson wants you to get an offensive line, well, I think he wants weapons just as much as he wants offensive line. So is there anybody that stands out for me? The big names are, your Will Fullers, your Kenny Golladays, Curtis Samuel, Juju Smith-Schuster, Jonnu Smith, the tight end. Zach Ertz is, the Eagles are trying to trade him. I'm not sure that any of those guys will end up in Seattle just because of their price, but I would, I think a lot of players are going to end up signing one-year deals. And listen, call comes down. If they somehow sort things out with Russell Wilson in the next 24 hours, why wouldn't you want to spend a year playing with Russ?
Yeah,
that would, to me, would be a great opportunity.
I think
it's a great opportunity the Bears are going to have.
Yeah. I mean, all the names you listed are probably guys that are going to be probably out of our price range, but I could see us taking a one-year flyer on John Ross or someone like that. Someone who can also help in the return game and got blazing speed. And, I think that'd probably be a good starting place for us to go as far as the third receiver. I kind of like our ends, to be honest with you. I'd like to see what Will Dissly could do. And Colby Parkinson was rated really high. I'd like to give the guy an opportunity to play. So I feel like that's kind of a position that we could play around with a little bit, and let's see what we got there and see what happens with these guys. Cause I think, they're both young, we drafted them, to come play tight end for us. So I think that these guys could have an opportunity, and, I'd just like to see what they got. I'd rather spend our money elsewhere than a big tight end. I mean, we've seen that happen with Greg Olsen, Jimmy Graham. It just doesn't seem to pan out the way we want it to. I'd rather see what these young guys can do and then go attack a third wide receiver instead, or spend the money on an upgraded center or defensive end. I'd rather spend the money elsewhere than spending big money on a tight end, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think sort of looking across the defensive side again, I mentioned Hassan Reddick, and again, I suggested all these names because these are the kind of names I want to see the Seahawks have a dabble at, Robbie. But we know what they're going to do. They're going to get in there. They're going to feel out the market, and they're going to sign somebody for peanuts, for $2 million, and they'll sign. I mentioned it earlier in the article. They signed Brandon Shell, BJ Finney, and Cedric Abui from about $9.5 million. And Jack Conklin, who was an all-pro at right tackle for Cleveland, cost them $8 million last year. So, are you better off signing cheap and cheerful players, or are you better off signing Jack Conklin? Jack Conklin, for me. So, I don't know. Anyway, I think on the defense, Hassan Reddick, if they are going to play some of these bare fronts, Robbie, I think that he would be good, as somebody who can play as a pass rusher in space, somebody who can play Sam linebacker when you want to do that, someone who could potentially fill in at will if you had an injury crisis or whatever. He had 12.5 sacks last year. By signing him, you weaken an opponent, Arizona, and strengthen yourself. I loved Hassan Reddick coming out in the draft. He was one of the guys that we talked about all the way through the process. We were mocked into Seattle 100 times, and then by the time the Senior Bowl came around and he had an amazing combine, he was a top 15 pick. So I'd quite like to see some moves there. Anything to help the pass rush for me is a plus, because that's just sort of the people have become so obsessed with the offensive line, me included, Robbie. I think it's forgotten that what did the Buccaneers do in the Super Bowl? Go after the quarterback, made Patrick Mahomes look pretty ordinary. Austin Slater says Seahawks linked to John Ross seems like a decent dart throw, but not something you can count on. I'd agree on that. I'd happily have a punt on John Ross to see if he can do anything. Now, look, you start with your name was Bring Sherm Home. Somebody accused me of just being a sentimental old fool earlier on the blog for wanting Sherman back because he wasn't good enough anymore and he'd lost his attitude and he'd lost all that. I don't think that if anyone thinks that Richard Sherman coming back to Seattle would be sort of mailing it in, you are having a laugh. We're talking about Sherm coming back to Seattle. He's going to give it everything, Robbie, if this happened. Everything. And I just think it'd be great because he doesn't have to learn the scheme. I think he'll be cheaper than some of the other options out there. But I know he had a horrible year in terms of injuries in 2020, but I still think when healthy, he's better than Shaquille Griffin. And I think it'd be great to draft a cornerback and have that cornerback work under Sherm, because I think he understands this scheme better than probably even Pete Carroll. So I think it'd be a great transition thing to have Sherm start for a year or two, have an understudy working with him, or even a couple of guys working with him, to see if you can get that conveyor belt working again when the Seahawks used to be bringing cornerbacks through their system all the time.
Yeah, and he just has that alpha mentality that we like, right? I mean, you can say Jamal Adams has that alpha mentality all you want, but he might be loud.
He just talks a lot.
He just talks a lot, but I mean, Sherman actually backs it up. So yeah, let's get someone in who is an actual alpha male and can help bring some fire to this defense, because this is what we need. And this is why I want to bring Sherm home. I mean, just 100%. And I just want to step back real fast, and you say, what did Tampa Bay do to Kansas City in the Super Bowl? They got after Patrick Mahomes, made him look silly. Now what's Kansas City doing? They cut off their whole offensive line, right? So they're
pretty hurt. I don't think they're going to play this year.
Yeah, but
two guys they cut might miss the whole year.
Well, still, they're going after, they're trying to revamp that offensive line as well. So, it's just something to consider. Like, the defensive line is an area that we need to focus way more
on. Right. Well, let's have a chat about Russell Wilson, Robbie, because it's an unavoidable subject. And, if anybody's tired of talking about it or hearing about it, well, I'm afraid until there is a resolution, it's going to be talked about. So, Eduardo said Colin Coward read on his show one sentence and Pete Carroll saying he very much likes Sam Darnold. So, latest, as far as I see it, Robbie, reading the tea leaves, Michael Silver said last week that there should be a resolution by next week. I think the Seahawks know what is on the table, whether that is just the Bears or whether that is the Bears and possibly other suitors. I think they know what they're getting. I don't think there will have been these heavy negotiations, because I think a lot of these teams, Robbie, will have just gone to Seattle. What's it going to take? You tell us what you want for your franchise quarterback. And the Seahawks probably told them. And if they went, yep, that's okay, then there's no negotiation, is there? That's it. So then it's just a case of, what do the Seahawks do next? And I think they are, this is a complete guess, I think they're tucked away somewhere this weekend, Robbie, thinking, do we really want to do this? Maybe now is the time that you speak to Russell Wilson and go, do you really want to do this? Because once the phone call is made, that is it. There's no going back. You'll be going to the Bears or you'll be going somewhere else. Number 3, it's not going to be retired in Seattle. It's not going to be in the rafters. When you go to the Hall of Fame, it's not just going to be with the Seahawks jersey. It's not going to be with one logo. The fan base who could adore you forever will just see you as the next A-Rod or whoever else is like. I'm not up on my Mariners baseball. I've seen them play once.
A-Rod's a good example.
They lost 10-0 when I went to see them play. So that's how I see it. And I think that, Wilson will have a call to make there, but Wilson seems so focused on his legacy, Robbie, and winning and doing all these things that I don't think any of this is going to tug at the heartstrings enough to make him think, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna reverse all this stuff I've been doing for the last few weeks. I think as soon as Mark Rodgers was contacting Adam Schefter and that tweet went out, it was basically saying, I'm ready. I've made my mind up. I'm sort of got one foot out the door here. So that's how I see it. The other thing the Seahawks have got to do, Robbie, is what you can't do is trade Russell Wilson and then go, right, quarterbacks. What you've got to do is you've got to be like, okay, we're going to do this. Now let's go and get our replacement ready so that when this is announced very shortly, if not at the same time, we're announcing who is replacing the guy that we've just traded. So Colin Coward, as Eduardo correctly pointed out there, mentioned Sam Darnold. I don't think that was a blindfolded dart throw at the dartboard to see if you could hit. I think there was probably a reason behind that. And people will say, what does Coward know? A Coward this. People don't like Colin Coward. I don't really mind him personally. A lot of people don't like him. I think if you appreciate what he is and that there's a reason why he does what he does and it's made him successful and he's got a career out of it, and a lot of it's an act and a lot of it is just Colin being Colin, because it's good broadcasting whether you like him or not. He is connected. And in 2018, a lot of people don't know this, Robbie, he was invited into a draft room and he spent the whole draft with a team in their draft room, in their war room, watching everything unfold. Very few journalists get to do that. Peter King does it nearly every year. Obviously not last year, probably not this year. But he did it pretty much every year. Very few people are trusted enough and have the contacts to be able to go into a war room and watch things unfold and be trusted that once you leave that draft room, you're not going to tell everybody what we did. And Colin did that. So whether you like him or not, he is connected. And he's very close to Wilson and he's very close to Mark Rodgers. And I don't think there was the Darnold stuff was just a random shot in the dark. I think that was perhaps even an indication, Robbie, of what Seattle's plans are if indeed Wilson moves on. So if that is the case this weekend, if they've decided we're going to trade Russell Wilson, if that decision ends up getting made, then they've either got to find a way for the Jets to be involved in the deal, which becomes a 3-teamer with Darnold coming to Seattle, or they have to negotiate with the Jets separately so that the deal can go through very quickly as well. So that is where I think this is at. It's a case of a decision I don't think is necessarily been made. Maybe it has, maybe it hasn't. I don't know as to whether they're going to trade him or not. Ian Rappaport said today that teams who are interested expect a decision will be coming in the next day or so as to whether or not the Seahawks will trade him, which I thought was much more interesting than the bluster he said before that about, well, the people I've talked to said the Seahawks haven't really negotiated and all that. No, you kind of buried the lead there, Ian. If teams are expecting that a decision's coming in the next couple of days, then that's big news. That's more important than the other stuff. So if that's the sort of time frame we're looking at here, Robbie, the start of the new league year, for a deal to be either sorted or not, then I think that's very interesting. So I think that the decision's been made there, and then it's about negotiating for the replacement. What do you think?
I'm still kind of on I think they could work it out. I know you said multiple times that you feel like it's beyond that. I don't know. I feel like it could be just shots fired either way, right? Like Russ listing teams and saying, all right, well, I'm getting serious about this. You need to start listening to me. And then the Seahawks, responding back, well, we're tired of it too. And we're going to list a player that we think would benefit our system. And I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of what ifs. Like, there's a lot of reports being said, but I mean, the bottom line is this dramatic situation between Russ and the Seahawks needs to end now. Either trade him or don't. Come out and say we're not, and then figure out what you're going to do from there, because all this drama and all this thing going into free agency, you can't have that. We need to have a plan going forward. So whether their plan is to trade him, do it now and make it happen, or come out and say we're not trading him and this is what we're going to do, and try to make it work, because it's just too dramatic and it's absolutely ridiculous that it's gone on as long as it has. And we're now, free agency is knocking down the door. And that's why I think you're hearing that we'll have a decision in a day or two, because we need to know what we're going to be doing in free agency.
Absolutely. I mean, it has to have it would be malpractice from everybody involved, Robbie, if this does not get sorted before free agency. Because if you're the Bears, you need to be able to build around Russell Wilson. If you're the Seahawks, you need to be able to move on. If you're not trading Russell Wilson, you need to build around Russell Wilson and you need to get him on board. Now, it's not that I don't think that there can't be a resolution. I mean, as I was saying on, I think the stream with Jackson last week, and in the podcast that we did afterwards on the Pedestrian podcast, check that out if you get a chance. What I was sort of saying was that I think in order for this to sort of come full circle and then to get back together, it's going to take a big statement. And because what you can't do is just go, right, okay, we've kind of sorted things out for this year, but next year we might have the same conversation all over again. And if things go a bit wrong during the regular season, we'll end up talking about this non-stop. I think you need to make a statement. And I think if they're going to come back together, there has to be a new contract. I think you have to say, okay, we're going to lower your cap hit this year. and we're going to tack on a couple of years, or maybe even go on a Mahomes style contract, or mirror what Dak Prescott got, and we're going to, and because that is the one surefire way, Robbie, to end this and have Russell Wilson stay, is a new contract. There's no more mystery then. And then you have a press conference and Russell goes, we've worked it all out. Everything's fine. I'm going to be here hopefully for the rest of my career. And he reiterates all of that, and you move forward with a new deal. If that happens, great, fine. I'm not saying that that's impossible at all. I just think that right now, and we heard from Florio earlier today, that nothing has been resolved between the Seahawks and Carroll. As things stand right now, nothing resolved. I just think maybe there's too much water under the bridge. All the things that Coward said that were clearly from Wilson, the tweet from Schefter, to me indicates that maybe, and look, Tony Pauline, the main man, shout out to Tony P, friend of the blog, loves a bit of Led Zeppelin, don't we all? He said on Friday that the Seahawks are just as ready to move on as Russell Wilson, which was quite the line. So if that would suggest that it's pretty much done. What do you think of Sam Darnold? Because I watched a lot of Sam Darnold on Friday and Saturday, Robbie. It was a Sam Darnold fest in the Staton household. What do you think of Sam Darnold? I'll tell you what I think just after.
Well, I definitely didn't go watch tape of Sam Darnold. That's for sure. I didn't put on a bunch of.
You've got better things to do, man.
Yeah, I don't know. I think a part of me is like has that hope of like, oh, if it does go down and we get Sam Darnold, at least he's played in the NFL and it's not a rookie that we just have no idea. But he also played for the Jets, and maybe it's just like he was just in a bad system, and the Jets are so bad that he'll come here and light it up, and all of a sudden he becomes a leader of men and leads us to the Super Bowl and all that.
A strong jawline,
right? But then I also have that part of me where, man, the guy turned the ball over like a crazy amount of times at USC. He's done it with the Jets. Just doesn't seem like the kind of guy that, in my opinion, would you don't change accuracy that well. Like, I mean, it's really hard to do. And I just don't think that's going to be, or decision-making. Like, I mean, his decision-making needs to get a lot better. I don't know how well he plays in the play action, but if he's turning around and handing the ball off to Najee Harris and that guy's going to be the guy who lead us for us, then fine. But I don't know, man. I'm not 100% sold on Sam Darnold. I quite like the idea of drafting a quarterback as well to compete with him, just to have somebody, that we could have in the back burner just in case he flails out and doesn't do very good for us. I'm just not 100% sold on Sam Darnold, if I'm being honest, man. But I mean, hey, if it works out and he's the guy that comes in, I'll root for him. And hopefully that first thing that I said, that he comes in and becomes champ and can leave. Because I don't really care who plays quarterback as long as we're winning Super Bowls, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, so my opinion on Sam Darnold, having watched a lot of tape, all 22 games from last year, 4 games from 2019. My impression of Sam Darnold is that I don't think he's ever going to be an elite quarterback. I don't think what you're ever going to do is you're going to wake up one day and he's suddenly a top 5 player, top 7, top 8 quarterback, Robbie. I think that his kind of ceiling is that sort of Matt Stafford type range, which is not terrible. I mean, the one thing that Stafford and Darnold have in common is they both played with crappy franchises for Stafford for a long time and for Darnold for the last 3 years. I do think environment matters. And here's the thing. If you watch any quarterback, you will find stupid decisions, Robbie. They all make them. If you go and watch Trevor Lawrence against Virginia Tech, and we're talking about the golden child of the NFL draft, okay? There is one play against Virginia Tech in the red zone where he drops back, he stares right down the middle of the red zone, the end zone, locks on to the receiver at the back of the end zone. The safety spots it. There are 3 defenders around that guy covering him. He throws late, and it's intercepted in the end zone for a touchback. It is a horrendous throw. I have no idea why he locked on to that target, why he never moved off that target, why he made the decision to throw into that tight window. he had his head in his hands after the throw. Players who don't have that great experience do stupid things. And if you put them in a terrible environment and ask a lot of them, they'll make even more mistakes than they otherwise would. Now, Sam Darnold at USC had a lot of turnovers. I'm not trying to make excuses for him because the Seahawks are in link with him, but he carried USC. And now he's gone to the New York Jets, and he didn't carry the Jets, but he wasn't put in a great environment. Now, the only spell of his Jets career so far, Robbie, where they've been vaguely competent was at the end of last season when they finished the year 6-2. And his touchdown to interception rate was 13 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. So it's more than a 3-to-1 ratio there. The course of the season, that will be fine. 30 touchdowns to 10 interceptions is kind of Pete Ball. That's Pete Carroll football for you, really. And that was playing for the Jets with only Robbie Anderson and often injured Jamison Crowder. You give him DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, maybe another weapon in a running game. I don't know. It's hard to judge a player when they play for the Jets. So I watched the tape. There was a lot to like. You could see why he went 3 overall. You could see why players like Mike Mayock thought he should have gone 1st overall just 3 years ago. There's one throw against the Rams where his first read is to the left and it's not there. And then obviously playing the Rams, so you've got Michael Brockers and Aaron Donald breathing down your neck. He has to leave the pocket, scramble across to the right, and then on the move, he throws, his both feet are off the ground and his body's twisted and out of position. And he throws this ball to the corner of the end zone, and it's an absolute dime. And the bonehead receiver, Braxton Berrios, drops it for what would have been a spectacular touchdown. And I'm watching that, and I'm thinking, you can work with that. You can work with that. He played well against the Seahawks in the first half before the stupid field goal kicker missed 3 kicks and just sucked the life out of the Jets team. In 2019, I admitted all the games that I watched were on his good run. So I wanted to sort of see him at his best, not struggling with the Jets. I thought he looked good. I think that he has to effort ball sometimes, which means he has to really sort of put, he's not like Aaron Rodgers who just goes and it comes out of his hand. He's not like, Russ has got very natural arm strength. Rodgers got natural arm strength. Mahomes is, it's just Josh Allen. It comes out just like a little flick and it just bombs downfield. He hasn't got that. He's more of a, have to put something into this and we have to drive this sometimes, which isn't always great. But apart from that, I generally found his accuracy was fine. There are occasional really weird decisions like the Jamal Adams should have been pick 6 that was dropped feet for hands on the logo in the Seahawks game. But I generally thought there was something to work with there. And I came away thinking, he's not Russell Wilson. But you could do a damn sight worse than Sam Darnold if you are moving on from Russell Wilson.
Yeah, and one of the nice things about Sam Darnold, right, is I believe he has this year, and then you'd have the 5th-year option to give to him. So, so he'd be fairly cheap for this year and I guess fairly expensive the next. But, it's nice to have that at least as an option, trading for him. But I still think you need to draft a quarterback. I think even if you keep Russ this year, you need to draft a quarterback because you don't know what it's going to look like, next year. And it's unfortunate that we only have 4 picks going in this draft because we really need to draft, a replacement quarterback or at least someone to compete. That's what I meant to say.
I've watched every Kellen Mond game for the last 3 seasons. And in my next mock draft, I'll be mocking him number 12 to the San Francisco 49ers. So that's how highly I rate him. And listen, I'm not saying he's Patrick Mahomes. That would be stupid because he's not. But just cast your mind back, Robbie, 4 years ago. Was it 4 years? 4 years, 5 years when Mahomes entered the draft? It was 4 years, wasn't it? Either way, Patrick Mahomes was being mocked in the late first. The late first. Gathered a bit of momentum late in the process. But he was being mocked in the late first. Patrick Mahomes was not being talked about as a surefire top 5 pick. Should have been, in hindsight. I didn't even watch Patrick Mahomes, Robbie, because there was no need to at the time. I kind of watched highlights just so when I was doing a mock, I could fit him in. Didn't watch him at all, really. Didn't watch any games, didn't study any tape because there was no need to with Russ. But I'm just saying, there's quarterbacks who going much earlier who people were sort of saying Deshaun Watson might last to the late first round after his final year in Clemson. I've just got to. I'm struggling to find the issues with Kellen Mond. He's shown progress 17, 18, 19, 20. Real progress. Could he move around in the pocket a bit more, improvise a bit more, be a bit of a magician a bit more given his athleticism? Yes. Am I bothered about that given he's such a maestro in the pocket who can handle pressure and stand tall and launch it downfield? He makes the prettiest passes of all the quarterbacks in this draft class, Robbie. I'm sold. I am absolutely sold on Kellen Mond.
That's what I said in our last podcast. I really like Kellen Mond. Like he's my guy. That's the guy I like the most. And I agree. I mean, I really like Zach Wilson as well. I'm going to be honest. Like I think Zach Wilson, his ceiling is Patrick Mahomes. I think that's how good he can be. Is he? No, but he has that ability. But we have no shot. He ain't getting past the Jets at number 2. So.
Yeah, I like Zach Wilson as well. I tell you what, I'm not interested really. I'm not really sold on Trey Lance. I watched his pro day. Too many balls on the floor, accuracy all over the place. A couple of nice throws, great arm, fantastic shape. It's very jealous. See, I've not been able to go to the gym for 3 months now, Robbie, because of lockdown, and I can't go back for another month. April the 12th is when the gyms reopen over here. Just watching him sort of move around, looking as good as he did. Maybe want to go out and do some push-ups straight away. But, he's in great shape. But I'm not sure that I would want him, leading the Seahawks or even being one for the future. I think he's kind of very similar to Josh Allen, is that he will need time. There will be massive growing pains, but he's not got the upside of Josh Allen. I think he's more closely resembles Jordan Love than a Josh Allen type. Justin Fields all over the place, his accuracy. So, quick thought on the quarterback. I said, so I'm not against them drafting a quarterback. I'm just not sure who it is. And Davis Mills might be there in round 2. I think that's his floor. I don't think he's going to go much further than round 2 personally. After that, there's nobody else I would really look for. And when I'm watching this draft, Robbie, I'm thinking if they get 20, what are they going to do? Because there's going to be guards in round 2. I think they need to get a starter with that pick, an impact player. I sort of see receivers in there. Obviously, Javonte Williams were, there's some questions I want to ask you and answer. And I think one of them mentions running backs as well. It mentions Najee Harris at 20. We'll come on to that to finish. But I just kept looking at it. I think I don't rate some of these guys, Robbie, that highly. Kwity Paye has got an outstanding physical profile. Very similar to Frank Clark in terms of his agility, his explosive traits. Could I see the Seahawks taking him because of potential? Yes. Even though his production is pretty poor. Jason Owe, 0 sacks in 2020. 0. As many as me and you, Robbie. But he apparently runs a 4.38 laser time he ran the other day. Wind assisted, no doubt. But let's say he runs in the 4.4s. He's 250 pounds. He's got the Montez Sweat physique and frame. He just doesn't have the Montez Sweat tape. He defended the run a bit better this year, but there's nothing. You kind of cheer the tape on and you think, I want to see some of this brilliant athletic profile, and it doesn't come. But then he's a freak of nature, Robbie, and he's the kind of player the Seahawks draft to play pass rush. So could they take him? Some people love him in there. I wouldn't touch him until kind of round 2, 3, and then it'd be a project. A lot of people, I think Lance Alien has him in his top 20 prospects for this year. So the Seahawks could have him in that range based on upside potential, without a shadow of a doubt. They did draft Darrell Taylor a year ago, and he was not as raw as Jason Owe, but they traded up for him because he looked the part, and Jason Owe looks the part. There are others, off the top of my head, Jalen Phillips is another one. He's an absolute bit, I could easily imagine Jalen Phillips being one of the leading pass rushers in the NFL, Robbie, within 3 years of him being drafted. I could also imagine him retiring as he did when he was at UCLA because of concussion. So, but there's definitely something there with him. Peyton Turner, who I interviewed, check out the YouTube channel. Nice 20-minute interview with Peyton Turner on there. I could see him going a lot earlier than people think. You've got Joe Tryon, who I also interviewed. Check out the YouTube channel. Getting some nice plugs in here. You've got Gregory Rousseau, who I'm not a big fan of, but, a lot of people like him. And then in terms of interior guys, you've got your Levi Onwuzurike. I don't think Christian Barmore's a first-round pick. A lot of people do. Davian Nixon's a good defensive tackle, but again, I don't think they take that position that seriously to go that early with it, Robbie. And then you've got some of the others, your Chris Rumms and people like that later on, who may be appealing there. So I think if they end up trading Russ, and especially now that, and this is the other thing, Khalil Mack's not going to be part of the deal anymore. Did you see that? They restructured his contract in Chicago. So he's out. He's a big fat out of any trade.
Which is the most frustrating. When I saw that, I was just devastated because I want Khalil Mack. And I don't know why you wouldn't want Khalil Mack. They should have said it starts with 3 first-rounders and Khalil Mack, period. And then you negotiate from there. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, well, he's... I just very briefly to come back to it. What would you accept as a trade? That's hard to answer. It's such an awful question to ask somebody. So I apologize, Robbie. That is a really terrible. It's the stupidest question I've ever asked in my life. Let me propose something to you, and then you can say whether you would be tempted by it or not.
Okay.
3 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and then the Bears finding a way to include Sam Darnold in the deal. So you don't have to use any of your newly acquired stock to replace Russell Wilson. You're getting Sam Darnold, and then you have 3 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks, 5 total picks that are somewhat high, that are potentially in the top 60 to move forward with. Would that be acceptable for you? Bear in mind that if you are trading Russell Wilson, it's because you think that this situation is untenable.
I don't think it's enough. I don't think it's enough. I think the Bears need to package a player with it as well. If it's going to be three firsts, 2 seconds, find a way to get a Sam Darnold, and you need to give us a player or 2. I mean, who do you
want though? I
can't see anybody on the Bears roster. The Bears roster, and there's not much that I love, right? I mean, there are.
They keep saying their fans keep saying, "Well, you can have Nick Foles." It's like, no. They say you can have Jalen Johnson. I'm all right.
Yeah.
And then you can have Kyle Fuller, what with his $13 million base salary?
Right.
29. Like, no thanks. And then, you can have Akeem Hicks. Love Akeem Hicks. He's 32 this year.
Yeah.
He's on a 1 year left on his deal. So you'd have to re-sign him after 1 year. It's a rental. It's not, if you were giving us like a 26-year-old Akeem Hicks on a 4-year contract, then I'm all for it.
Sure.
That was the thing about Khalil Mack, is that he had a 4-year contract with Chicago that was going to take him through till like age 32. So age 34. So you had some years there that you don't have with any of these other guys, unless they're going to like start throwing in Mooney, the young receiver, or because they're not going to get rid of Allen Robinson. People like Cole Kmet, they're going to get rid of Cole Kmet. You after drafting him. So Cody Whitehair restructured his deal, so he's not on the table. There wasn't anybody, Robbie, who I thought I want them. I mean, Roquan Smith's another one. Someone said, well, "Why don't we swap Bobby for Roquan Smith?" I was like, "Why do we want to do that?"
Let's swap Jordan Brooks.
Just drafted Jordan Brooks, and why would we swap Bobby Wagner to pay Roquan Smith a Bobby Wagner salary next year? That was like, what's the point of that? You might as well just keep Bobby Wagner. So unless they trade Bobby Wagner, then Roquan Smith becomes appealing. But until that happens, it's a big no-tar. So I couldn't see a player. So if you're saying it needs to be a player, then does it have to be more picks? If there's no player, I mean, what are we talking about? 3/3 on top of that, or
I mean,
what are we talking about here?
I just don't feel like it's enough. We're giving up a proven Hall of Fame quarterback, and I don't think it's ever happened. It's never happened that at least I can tell. Right? No, we've never been in a situation where you've got a quarterback who's in his prime. Right?
Here's a thought, Robbie, because some of the rumors and the talk and the speculation was the Bears are going to come up with an offer that the Seahawks can't refuse. So what I can't compute what a deal is that you can't refuse, because I think you can refuse what I just pitched to you because you've refused it. So any offer presumably has to knock your socks off. Oh, yeah, we have to take that deal. So what is it? Is it a whole draft? Is it 3 firsts, 3 seconds, and 3/3 in the next 2 years? Is that enough? I mean, that's quite a haul. That is a really big haul of picks.
It's a big haul,
That is 6. That is 9 picks in the first 3 rounds. That's 9 players. 9 players for Russell Wilson and Sam Darnold. You see, when you start getting into that territory, that seems pretty unbelievable to me. Because you're not going to hit on all 9, but what if you hit on 4? I mean, if you get 4 really good players for the price of 1, and Sam Darnold comes in and holds the fort, that must be a spectacular deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's more appealing for sure. And I'm just trying to catch up on the comments here. And Dan just said something. You're looking at this from the perspective of not the Seahawks perspective, or your perspective, not the Seahawks. They love their linebackers. It's true. They do. They love their linebackers. And, I don't know how they could pair the three of them, Jordan Brooks, Bobby Wagner and Smith. I mean, I'm not saying I dislike Smith as a player by any means, but and he's right. Dan, you're right. The Seahawks do love their linebackers.
Is he saying they love linebackers, the position, or is he saying they love their? All right, okay, they love linebackers.
Yeah,
I wouldn't dispute. They spent a first-round pick on Jordan Brooks last year. I don't think either of us would dispute that they love their linebackers. Doesn't mean that we have to agree.
Yeah, I just don't know if he's the guy that you. I mean, and it's from my perspective. I just don't think we need him, right? I just don't.
Roquan?
Yeah. It doesn't make sense to try to fit him in, but
to play.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Maybe he ain't a Sam, is he? He's a.
But we have talked about trading Bobby this year. I mean, we've one of the times we've talked about this. We've said, what do we got to do to earn some money here, to get some money back? And one of the discussions was, we need to trade Jamal, we need to trade Bobby, but that was also to put Jordan Brooks into that middle linebacker spot.
I don't know if you noticed this, Robbie, but when everybody was like crying and shouting about the letter, the season ticket letter this week that didn't have Russell Wilson's name on it, it didn't have Bobby Wagner's name on it either. So there you go. Clearly they're both on the way out. Okay, right. Let's answer some questions to finish. I think we've done an hour and 6, so let's cover some of these questions and wrap up here, because I think we've got through quite a lot. If you have a question that you want to throw our way right at the end, stick it in the YouTube comments section now, and we'll do a little Q&A to finish, unless Robbie has anything else he wants to discuss before we head out here. Shaking his head. So Omar says, is it worth it to get Najee Harris at pick 20? I honestly think so. So when I was watching the college football season, Robbie, I loved Najee Harris and thought, I really think he's got what it takes to be a star in the NFL. Like a lot of the running backs, the Dalvin Cooks, Jacobs, those kind of Derrick Henrys who've come into the league, big college careers, and then they've become established NFL players. I thought Najee Harris was going to do that. But the more I've watched Javonte Williams, the more I've thought he's RB1 in this class. And, maybe if they'd have tested at the combine, I would have felt differently. Although I think Najee Harris is more of a 4.6 runner than anything faster than that. And I think Javonte is probably 4.5s. I think that Najee Harris at 20 wouldn't be the move that I would go with. If they traded down to 30 and he was there, I'd think about it. I wouldn't want to take him at 20. And I think I'd probably take Travis Etienne and Javonte Williams ahead of Najee Harris, having studied them a bit more in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, for me, it depends on what else they do, but I wouldn't hate having Najee Harris at 20. I think the guy's a beast. Would love to have him on our backfield. So for me, I'm a hell yeah, but there's got to be a lot of other things that, like, what did we do prior to that, and who did we bring in?
His jump cuts bothered me. He just didn't have that explosion, to jump through and explode. Plus, when you watch Javonte Williams, he's just such a bamf. I mean, you just he runs people over. It's exactly what they look for. Stuart says, how comfortable are you guys with Penny and Hyde holding down the fort running back? Carson is going to get an offer that the Hawks probably won't match. Well, I agree with that. I think Carson may well move on, but I am not comfortable with Hyde and Penny. Hyde, people forget this, Robbie, was almost as absent as Chris Carson last year. He was injured as much. And Penny has just missed pretty much a whole season with injury. And it'll be 2 years removed from being a regular feature for the Seahawks. I can't depend on those two, because that to me just seems like a recipe to be 3-4 weeks into the season and in exactly the same position you were in 2020, which is having a bit of Travis Homer, having a bit of DJ Dallas, deciding that neither of them are good enough, and then having to ring Alex Collins to get him off his sofa, or Bo Scarborough.
Well, they re-signed Alex Collins already.
Yeah. So, well, he won't have to get off his couch this time and step over the pizza boxes. He'll already be in the building. But you get my point. That they kind of went down that road last year, and it cost them. There's a section of Seahawks fans who are allergic to talking about running backs. The only running back is a one that's earning like $5 who is just a guy who you can get in the way on play action, Robbie. That if we're going to talk about this, I think the Seahawks need more. I think I'm not saying they should go and spend the money that Green Bay just has on the position, but I think that they need more. And I don't want to rely on those two. Whether it's a draft pick, whether it's Leonard Fournette, whether it's Mike Davis, whether it's a trade, whether it's you draft one of these guys in the first 2 rounds. I mean, I think they should have just drafted someone last year, Jonathan Taylor or Cam Akers or DeAndre Swift or Big Clyde, Edwards-Helaire.
They were scared to draft a running back that early after taking Rashad Penny in the first round. I think that just kind of scared them off. But I agree, we should go out and draft a guy. And I quite like Alex Collins to be honest. I mean, I think he ran really well for us last year. He seemed to be motivated, and I quite like the fact that he played well. I'm not saying he's going to be the guy by any means, and I'm not comfortable having just him and Rashad Penny and DJ Dallas and Travis Homer as the backs. But I do think giving him a couple more touches is not the worst thing in the world, and but I do think we need to go out and get a different running back as well. I don't want to re-sign Chris Carson. If I'm being flat out honest, I just don't think it's worth the money. I just don't think it's worth paying Chris Carson the money. He's just hasn't proven to be healthy. The prior year to that, he had the fumbling problems. I just don't see it being, I'm not saying he's a bad back, but I think we have to spend our money elsewhere, and, we need to draft a young back.
This one says Carl Lawson and Carlos Dunlap reunion. So Carl Lawson is a free agent from the Bengals. Carlos Dunlap recently cut by the Seahawks, previously the Bengals. I'm not crazy about Carl Lawson. Short arms. I liked him at Auburn when he was in college. I know that he's had a very productive career with the Bengals. But Robbie, if you watch, a lot of his sacks are bull rush types. It's quite easy to get into his frame. The lack of length is a bit of an issue there. He's not the long, lean pass rusher that the Seahawks go for. He's going to be very expensive. I don't think it's very likely that the Seahawks are going to go in that direction. I think Carlos Dunlap could come back. I don't think that's beyond the realms of possibility, but I don't see Carl Lawson joining him in terms of that particular deal. Carey says Golladay would be awesome, but probably too pricey. Probably right. I think he'd be ideal. Robbie, get downfield, could play across from DK Metcalf, and then just go and draft a really athletic tight end. Brevin Jordan, Pat Freiermuth. I'd be up for a bit of that. John O. Smith, I don't want to spend massive amounts of money on him, but if they go that direction, that's fine. John says, why can't they get Khalil Mack now? They've restructured the deal. That can't be a sweetening of the pot. They didn't extend them right, just converted bonus money. So the reason for that is, John, is Khalil Mack's dead cap hit was X amount, about 20 million or something like that. If they traded him, it's now about 40 million. So there's just no reason why they would have done this if he was about to be moved. They would just have moved him. They wouldn't have cut. This just doesn't make any sense. Yeah, all right, the base salary would suddenly be lower for the Seahawks, but they would have just moved him. And the Seahawks could have just done a deal with Khalil Mack. Basically, what happened yesterday means Khalil Mack's going nowhere. It's just as simple as that. Ethan says, Mond at 20. Curtis says Drew Brees just formally announced his retirement. Robbie, have you got a thought on that?
Yeah, I just saw that as well on Instagram. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think that's we were talking in that one podcast about how hey, he's out here showing off videos of him working out. Maybe he's not quite done yet. Hey, maybe we could get him to Seattle. All these kind of things. Well, I'll say you were suggesting that, and
yes, I was saying that as part of a Saints trade.
Yeah, but you never know. Maybe that makes the Saints more of a player now. I don't know.
Does it mean the Saints are trading for Russell Wilson?
No, I don't think so. But who knows? Maybe.
Well, you just never know, do you? I mean, this is the thing. We kind of just assume it's just the Bears.
Well, the Bears have been the most linked or talked about team right now. I mean, I would love for more teams to get involved. If we're going to trade Russ, we want more teams involved to sweeten the deal, right? We want more teams involved. We want more players involved. We want them bidding against each other to get Russ's services. So yeah, go, get more teams involved.
I just wonder with that. I just wonder, the Saints are a very calculated team. there's a reason why they win a lot of games, and have only some really terrible luck has prevented them from probably winning a Super Bowl in the last few years. And I could just see them stepping up to the plate, Robbie. I don't know whether that's the case. They've done a lot to try and get their cap situation right. There has been a lot of talk about Sean Payton is very fond of Jameis Winston, and maybe they will just go with him on like $5 million and keep this sort of loaded roster and see if they can go there. I mean, if Payton's going to coach another 15 years, he may not feel like there's a rush to that. But if he's only coaching for another 5, 10, Robbie, he may feel more inclined to go for a Russell Wilson. And just because they have been very quiet in the Wilson thing, they also haven't ruled anything out. Neither of the Raiders, to be fair, but they've not come out and said, we're not going to be trading for Russell Wilson. No one's reported that the Saints are out. In fact, the reporters who are connected, like Michael Silver, have used teams plural. It's never just been a Bears thing. So you just don't know. And it could be that Breeze wants his, if Breeze is retiring, we're getting sidetracked here. If Breeze is retiring, is he going to want to do that before or after Russell Wilson trade? He's going to want it now. He's going to want to have his moment in the sun. He's going to want to make that announcement when there's nothing else going on, Robbie. He's not going to want to do that after they've traded for his replacement at great expense. That'd be a bad look for the Saints, for Breeze. It would look like he's almost been forced into retirement by that point. So I'm just sort of speculating. I'm not saying anything. I'm just sort of throwing this out there. Why not have the chat about it?
No, and I think that's a great point. I mean, just because 4 teams were listed, I mean, I remember earlier the report was, I think they had said something like, oh, the Jets and Dolphins and a couple other teams were teams that Seattle or that Wilson had liked, but then it came out officially was, Adam Schefter said it was these 4 teams. But that doesn't mean Wilson wouldn't accept a trade to another team. He's just saying that these are the 4 teams that he likes. Maybe someone else gets involved and they're like, hey, what do you think about, going somewhere else? There could be another team that's getting involved that we have no idea. And maybe they're bidding against each other right now. I have no idea. It's all speculation, but
it is. It's just, I find it, I've not thought about it because you just get so sidetracked on the Bears thing because the Bears this, the Bears that. I have more Bears fans getting in touch with me these days, Robbie, than Seahawks fans. Like the Bears fans, like, oh, Rob, great article because you talked about the Bears, and it's like they're thirsty for knowledge. The people are asking me, I have no sources. What's happening, Rob? What's going on? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I have no sources. No one's telling me anything. I haven't got a clue. I'm just sort of looking and reading the tea leaves like everybody else and trying to.
No one ever hits me up. What is the deal with that?
Sorry, man. Do you know what? I'll direct them to you. You can be the Bears correspondent from now. Perfect. You are officially the Bears correspondent of Seahawks Draft Blog.
Bills fans. The only people who ever hit me up were those Bills fans, man. And when I predicted the Seahawks to beat the Bills, and then after the Bills won, I got just hammered by Bills fans.
Well, I just wonder. It's just like I say, no one has said anything about the Saints. They've not ruled them out. They've just sort of disappeared into the background. And to be fair, it would be a very Bears thing, this, to sort of allow their fan base to be whipped up into a frenzy about Russell Wilson, and then he goes somewhere else. That would be so perfectly Chicago Bears. And, well, listen, the Saints still have players, Robbie, that would be really, there's a deal to be done with the Saints that's really appealing, and it involves Ryan Ramczyk, and it involves Marshall Lattimore. That, to me, would still, that and pick 28, rather than pick 20 and not a lot else, would still be more appealing to me, especially if the picks are sort of the same. And I don't know if there's a way of getting Darnold involved in that way as well. If you could get a Ramczyk, or if you could get a Lattimore, or both, or whatever, I'd be game with that. I mean, that to me still makes some appeal. And I know people are scared that the Saints win the Super Bowl, Russell Wilson. Good luck. If Russell goes to New Orleans, I'd just say, good luck, man. Go on. If it can't be Seattle, you go and win yourself a title. You bet on yourself. You want it out. No ill feeling from me. You go and do it. I know a lot of people will disagree with that and are shouting at the screen right now. John says, isn't today the deadline for a Wilson trade with legal tampering period open tomorrow? It's not the deadline, John. I think ideally it should happen in the next couple of days. In fairness, that's what Ian Rappaport has kind of suggested, that if it's going to happen, it'll be in the next couple of days. Mike Silver said it'll be all sorted by next week, one way or another. So I think a decision is probably coming. I'm certainly not going to be staying up till 2:00 in the morning waiting it tonight. But I think that there's a decent chance that at some point tomorrow we might have some kind of an update on this situation, if not Tuesday, before the new league year actually officially begins. If I'm just sort of running through here, Robbie, I don't know if you've seen any other questions. What's the Saints?
Keep up.
It is. There's quite a few. What's the Saints pick situation? Well, they've just got the same as everybody else, haven't they? They've got 28. They don't have any extra picks to chuck in. I think they have players that the Bears don't have that you could throw into a trade. Whether or not they're willing to trade them or not, I don't know. That depends how. I mean, the Bears are desperate. That's the difference between the Bears and the Saints. I think if the Saints start with Jameis next year, they'll think we can be competitive. I think if the Bears start with Alex Smith, the GM will be a dead man walking in terms of his job. So I think that's the difference between the two there. Seahawks should pray Javonte falls to them. Yeah, he's not going to. I don't think he's going to be that. I think he's going to go between 20 and 35. That would be my sort of guess. 20 and 40, which is right in between potentially where the Seahawks might pick if they do end up trading Russell Wilson. So Michael says he could see Russell Wilson going to Miami. I just don't see it. I know people want to get the Jets. Jets ain't happening. He ain't going to play for the Shanahan lot. Don't like him apparently. Well, it's not they don't like him. They don't think he fits. Miami, their offensive coordinator situation is a mess. They're a very conservative team offensively. They have a Belichick tree head coach. I just don't see it. And they also have the ammunition, Robbie, to go after Deshaun Watson, who's much younger than Russell Wilson. You know, they're a team that legitimately could go after Deshaun because they've got 3 and 18, and they've got picks, I think, in the future as well. So, no, it's the Jets who've got the picks in the future, isn't it? Because Jamal Adams. So, I think that the Jets and the Dolphins, they're probably going to wait this out for Deshaun Watson and get into a battle. The one team who might get involved, Carolina, but Matt Rule's such a Sergeant Major type head coach. I'm not convinced that is very, very likely. I think we're just about there. We've got a couple more here, maybe. Do you think Schneider and Pete have to run the trade by ownership before they make the move? Is that what they're doing now? I don't think they have to run anything by Vulcan Sports or Jody Allen. I think they've been given the keys. Do you agree, Robert?
100%. Yeah, they're not. I don't think they're running anything by them at all. I think it's Pete's show. Everything runs through Pete.
Washi says, what are your thoughts on my Russell Wilson opinion? Washi, I didn't see your thoughts on. If you want to type them again quickly, we'll just finish off with that now, because I know he's been asking quite a lot what our thoughts on his opinion are, but I didn't see your opinion. So write it out again and we'll quickly address it. Thomas says, I would take Mond high in the draft even if Wilson is still here. If they don't win next year, trade Wilson and move on Mond as the starter. Well, maybe, but if you're going to kind of move on with Russell Wilson, I think there needs to be a commitment that you're going to work for years to come, and then that pick's better spent in trying to improve the situation for Wilson rather than sort of planning his replacement. If you're making plans to get rid of Russell Wilson in the edge, do it now. There's no point waiting a year. Just get on with it now. Cameron says, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are we feeling in Darrell Taylor being a solid pass rusher? Robbie, I'll let you go.
On a scale of 1 to 10, right now it's a 1.
Yeah, mine's. I would join you in a 1.
I don't feel confident in it. And I hope I'm wrong on that. I really do. I hope that he comes back this year, but I don't even think he's going to play. I don't think he's ever going to play. It's my opinion.
That's it. I just want to see him on a football field. It's not whether I think he's going to be a good pass rusher or not. I'm not convinced we will ever see him on a football field, and that's his health is the priority right now, and I'm not sure we are ever going to see him. Washies is very unhelpfully just said, I'm not writing it out again. You can scroll up to the top. But I think somebody said that it's about Russell is 20% of the cap. No QB has won the Super Bowl being more than 10%. I think Tom Brady was Tom Brady's cap hit was 28 million, Robbie. So it's not like he was, being paid with, $10 last year. I mean, I think it's more coincidence than anything else. Because I fully expect Patrick Mahomes to have a great chance of winning a Super Bowl with his salary moving forward. So I'm not sure that this is the big thing. I think it's more coincidence than anything else. But I don't know. Maybe the Seahawks will put that to the test, Robbie, if they trade Russell Wilson and then improve. I don't know. But in order to improve, they're going to have to sign some free agents, I would suggest. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%.
If they trade Wilson, they've got to get involved in free agency, haven't they?
They're going to have to, yeah. And I don't know why they can't do that with Wilson. I mean, they can move money around to make it work. I don't know why they wouldn't,
Last few questions. Which running backs in the third round do you believe we should draft? I'm not big. Like Trey Sermon could be there. Neon Rain. Jefferson at Oregon State. I like Jefferson at Oregon State. I think he's really good. Is he a third round pick? Seahawks don't even have a third round pick right now. I mean, if they did get one, you're taking a running back there. Is Jamal Jefferson someone who you're going to really believe in? Khalil Herbert. I really like Khalil Herbert. Again, is he third? Is he fourth? These are the kind of discussions you've got to have. I mean, I like all these players, but not having any testing numbers from the combine is a big, big problem. How bad can stress fractures be? Okay, that's about Darrell Taylor again. I think we kind of addressed that. Let's
answer that one real fast. I think I don't think. I mean, it's not about the stress fracture itself. I think more it's about his mentality. I mean, it just doesn't even seem like the guy wants to play. Like last year, they were saying he was healthy enough to play, and they were all excited to get him on the practice field, and then he just couldn't. I think it's a mental thing. I mean, I don't know. I mean, and again, this is just pure speculation on my part. I have no idea. I just don't know if he's going to play. Like I need to actually see him on the field to get a good vibe on what he is. But just as I see right now, I just don't see him playing.
Okay, get ready for this, Robbie, because this is hilarious. Okay, this is just broken now in the last couple of minutes. The Saints are restructuring Taysom Hill's contract to create cap room. Listen to the details on this. So it's a 4-year, $140 million contract. However, all of the years are voidable, and it's merely a mechanism to free up cap space this year. And it saves the Saints $7.5 million against the cap. So everyone's like, there's actually one or two people like, look at this here. The Saints are out of it. No, they're not. All this deal does is create cap room. And the voidable years, Robbie, the voidable years are the trend. Teams are like Tom Brady's new deal has 2 voidable years on it, I think. Hasn't Patrick Mahomes just done something similar? Teams are milking this voidable year situation. Dallas did it with Dak in order to get around the cap problems this year. But if you'd have told me that a team would essentially give Taysom Hill a $140 million contract where every single year is voidable except this year in order to save $7.5 million, I don't know whether to say this is borderline cheating or whether to say this is absolutely genius from the Saints.
I just think it's funny. I mean, it's outrageous. I mean, how did they come up with $140 million? I don't know. Yeah, I would have never guessed they would have given Taysom Hill that kind of contract. So who knows, man? Yeah, I mean, but they're creating cap space, so maybe they're doing it for a reason. I don't think any team's out of it, and I still think there are other teams that could get involved too. Like, and that's kind of what actually maybe it's more of a hope than I actually think. But I hope there are teams that are involved behind the scenes that we just don't know about. Because I really don't want to send him to the Saints. I mean, I know, Ryan Ramczyk and Lattimore and the picks, but for me, I would rather just get him out of the NFC altogether. So I mean, that's why even the Bears doesn't appeal to me all that much. I'd rather send him to the Raiders or something.
But that's the thing, though. The Raiders are the only choice, though. And if they're not coming up with the goods,
that we know of, they're the only team that we know of.
Oh yeah, but who else is there?
I don't know. Maybe the Jets decide to get involved. I mean, maybe they're like, we want a proven player. We don't want to run the risk of going with even
if the Jets say we want to do it, which they won't because of Shanahan's guys are in that building. There is no way that Russell Wilson will go to the Jets.
That's true.
I'm telling you now, he won't go there. They are.
I would say no way. Though. Actually, I wouldn't say no way.
I would say no way. The culture is horrific in New York, and all right, it's New York, and yeah, the market, everything, yeah, okay. I think it's impossible to turn that franchise around. I think it's just so bad. Any kind of success is only ever going to be temporary. The ownership is toxic. It's really bad.
You were saying that Russ is about his legacy. And if he's about his legacy and he can go to New York and change a whole culture and turn it into a winning franchise, that's about his legacy. I don't know. I just don't think it's impossible. I mean, I actually agree with you.
I literally think it's impossible. I don't think I think it is impossible. And I think it's impossible because of Shanahan's with LaFleur there. I don't think they'll go near Russell. But with the Jets, I mean, Jake Heaps has actually said this on the radio. Jake Heaps being his quarterback coach, that Russell will have no interest in going to New York. And I think that's the case. And Miami may be different, but I just don't see it. I think if Miami was an option, they'd have been on the list. I think that list is the list, frankly. And I really don't care if Russell's in the NFC. I've always thought it's one of these weird things that we've got to get him out the end. I want him out the NFC West. I mean, I wouldn't want him going to the Cards or the Rams or the Niners, but he's in the NFC. Like, yeah, so what? Get to play him. It'd be quite fun. It'd be fun. Listen, one or two things are going to happen, Robbie. Either it's going to go so badly for the Seahawks that, major change occurs and maybe that's needed, or we're going to have a great rivalry with the Bears or whoever coming forward. So, I don't know. We'll see. I think we've come to the end of the questions. I'm not sure there's anything else. People are still talking about the money and stuff. Since you started, Aaron Jones signed, Drew Brees retired, Taysom Hill became a $140 million quarterback. You guys are the straw that stirs the drink. You just keep streaming to keep the news breaking. Okay. What are the chances? Robbie, if we stop this now, we've done an hour and a half. If we stop this now and Russell Wilson is traded in the next 5 minutes, we're jumping back on, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I've been standing by all weekend just in case something happens. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, listen, we'll end it there. I hope you enjoyed that 90 minutes of us talking about all this stuff. When there's any big breaking news, we will endeavor to jump on a stream straight away. I think it's noon Eastern time when the legal tampering period begins. That is when you need to be looking. What time is that in Seattle, Robbie? You're 7 hours behind us now because savings time. So
it's at what time did you say?
Noon Eastern time. So is that 9 o'clock in the morning? Your
9
time?
in the morning. Yeah.
So 9 o'clock Monday morning when the legal tampering period will open. 4 p.m. for those of you in the UK like myself. And that is when we'll start seeing all the big news about who's going where. And if there's a Wilson trade, if there's anything else that happens with the Seahawks, we'll do our best to get on a stream. Just check out Seahawks Draft Blog. You'll find it all on there. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please subscribe to the channel. Let's get those numbers up. You will not miss any streams. You will not miss any of our interviews, podcasts, anything else that we do. Subscribe to the channel. Like all the videos. Share them around. Get them on Reddit. Get them on the forums. Get them on Twitter. Spread the word. Tell your friends, your family to check out the podcast. To raise it up. It's got a big few weeks. Strap yourself in, guys. We've got a big few weeks coming up, and we're going to be there every single step of the way. SeahawksDraftBlog.com for more analysis, the best analysis on the Seahawks off-season. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Until next time, we'll see you later.